What was the most effed up thing that was generally accepted 20 years ago?
Waiting until after 7 p.m. to talk for free.
Paying 25 cents per text messages. Trying to convince people not to text me because I didn't want to pay.
Not password protect your devices.
No care or concern for concussions in sports. I was knocked out cold for 2 minutes on the football field, nobody told me, and when I came to we just resumed the game like nothing had happened. I didn't even know I was out for those 2 minutes until a year later when people were telling football stories. I thought I had just gotten knocked down and got back up right away. I thought it was weird everyone was making such a big deal about it. My first ever depressive episode started almost immediately after that game. Edit. 22 years of trial and error since then, and I've found that mega dosing, also known as the actual proper effective dosing, of omega-3 fatty acids EPA and DHA at least 1,000 mg of each per day along with physically demanding jobs, or cardio 30 to 45 minutes by 3 to 4 times per week, and 5,000 to 8,000 U of vitamin D3 daily have been the most effective natural treatments for me. A great book by Dr. Daniel Amen, Heal Your Brain, Heal Your Life, was instrumental in taking control of my own recovery. I've also found 4-sigmatic mushroom coffee helpful after an initial 3 days or so of severe irritability as a side effect, but not enough to justify the cost for my budget.
I definitely had a few concussions too. I remember throwing up repeatedly at the end of a practice after getting rocked. I was told to not throw up on the turf. Kind of the same topic, football practices. I'm not old enough to have gone through that no water days, but it seemed like the coaches were almost giddy during 2-a-days when it was literally 104 degrees. Practice from 6 to 10, watch film, eat lunch, lift and then go back out from 2 to 5. About 10 years ago the UIL, over high school sports in Texas, instituted all these new rules about how long practices can run and limits on heat, breaks, etc. They don't even have real 2-a-days anymore. Funny enough, despite what everybody thought, the quality hasn't gone down a bit.
I feel like youth sports coaching positions are just a magnet for power-hungry narcissistic assholes who just like to dominate and torture people.
Going on road trips without a phone.
Printer plus MapQuest. Before that was the dark ages of state routes and landmarks.
That OxyContin wasn't habit forming and it was a miracle D.
I specifically remember having health classes in 2001 talking about how it's a terrible D and you shouldn't take it even if the doctors give it to you.
My high school had an area that we were allowed to smoke, a designated smoking area for kids under 18.
My school still has that actually, we call it the smoke pit. It's outside the school, just across the parking lot. They don't condone smoking, now it's mostly vaping, but they say they would rather have teens smoke outside than in the bathrooms.
Being at home at your TV at a certain time to catch a show, and expecting everyone to leave you alone so you could watch it with no interruptions. You could be out with friends and you'd look and say, oh, it's 7:30, I got to get home to catch my show. And nobody looked at you like a strange social outcast. I guess it's still true with sports.
Paying $1.29 so 9 seconds of a song played when your phone rang. Edit. I've thought this through and am now debating going to the Succession theme for all work numbers calling my phone. Willing to workshop this with folks in the comments lol.
If I download the perfect ringtone everyone will know I am a cool dude and fun to be around. Downloads, peanut butter jelly time.
And, Imperial March, when your parents called.
This thread just proves that something we're doing nowadays will be considered effed up in 20 years' time, but we don't know what.
The way we handle garbage and recycling in general will be vastly overhauled. Kinda like how plastic shopping bags have been phased out. Well, think back and go, holy poo, why did we make everything disposable out of plastic? That was an awful idea.
People dying of chronic myeloid leukemia. 20 years ago it was 100% fatal in less than 5 years. Now it's treated with a once-a-day pill with no side effects for most people. Effing miracle science right there.
I've had CML since 2008. The first pill, Gleevec, was a miracle. It did have some side effects, but they were minor. The second pill, Sprycel, was better with almost no side effects. Price is an issue, of course, at $5,000 per month. I am lucky to have a good health care plan and government assistance if it's not enough. Sprycel now has a generic knockoff by Apotex, it's about $3,000 per month. CML was basically a death sentence before these DG came along. This wins. Smoking inside everywhere. McDonald's had ashtrays when I was a kid.
Agreeing with your friends to meet at a specific place at a specific time, then sticking to it because you had no way to communicate in the interim.
Basically every plot of Seinfeld is ruined with reliable mobile communication.
Lou Pearlman deserves a spot on this list. Stole millions and molested many while building his empire of boy bands in the late 90s. Link.
Ooh, this is just like the Japanese music industry. It's so similar it's not even funny. Except it's under a talent agency in Japan and the agency gets all the money, the performers get a fixed salary and there are many allegations of sexual abuse by the owner of the agency. They even had dorm rooms at one point to live in where the owner went around to them to groom the boys. I knew there had to be something similar to this in the USA, it's just that we didn't know who Lou Pearlman was back then.
Until 2003 it was perfectly fine for 16-year-old girls to pose topless for UK tabloid newspapers. There were countdowns for 15-year-olds to when they would be 16 and legal to print with pics taken and printed on their 16th birthday.
They did the countdown poo for Emma Watson, too. And they still do that poo **** now ***, just ask Billie Eilish.
Not 20 but 21 years ago they let me, a former child, enter the cockpit during a commercial flight.
I am also a former child.
Shutting down Napster disappointed.
I was a teenager in the 90s and I don't know if it was just round where I'm from, but it seemed to be acceptable to be sexually assaulted at the show's fairground for those not in Scotland. I went with friends every year from age 11 and it always happened. It was just kind of like shrug, well that's just what happens. Pretty sure this is just my area.
I used to play the Whose Hand Is on My Ass game on the NYC subway throughout the 90s. I stopped taking any jobs that required commuting during rush hour. Edit. It's the Whose Hand Is on My Ass game, but I love that it was a The Who song and a new CSI show.
Leaving the house and going out into the city with no way to contact your loved ones besides payphones.
Girls Gone Wild would not fly in today's environment, filming drunk girls doing things.
And airing it every night on regular channels so 12-year-old kids can watch it during a sleepover with their friends.
25 years ago, I had a gym teacher who did not think asthma was a thing and wouldn't let me have my inhaler at hand in class. I walked every mile because I didn't want to die. There's still a lot of trouble for the undiagnosed, but tons of physical and mental health issues that were downplayed or outright ignored at least have some kind of support system or protocol now. It's not perfect, but at least we know they're real and are starting to do something. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thanks for the award and I'm sorry you all had to go through similar BS, but I'm really glad it wasn't just me. Edit 2.0, 3 points I should say is the teacher was never a DK to anyone, I never got less than a B, and pretty much so long as you clearly tried, showed some kind of progress, and didn't start fights, he was pretty mellow. 2. He retired the year after I left the school, and this was a smaller, rural area at the time, so I may have been his first asthmatic kid and/or the dude was probably about 60 at the time, so this was newish to have someone diagnosed who is still allowed to participate. And for 3, there may have been rules about teachers keeping medications I was not aware of. I was 7 or 8 when I was diagnosed.
Yeah, I have exercise-induced bronchoconstriction. All the way through school I was just written off as being lazy and out of shape. Looking back, as a teacher, I'm pretty appalled that my pair teachers basically just told me to suck it up when I was actually having literal asthma attacks in their classes.
I feel like this maybe was longer than 20 years ago, but I distinctly remember restaurant hosts asking if we wanted to sit in a smoking or non-smoking section.
And then the only thing separating the sections was a putty piece of plastic divider that did nothing to stop the smoke and the whole place smelled anyway.
In middle school, a student dressed up like an SS Nazi for Halloween. Nobody said anything until my choir teacher told him that some people may find it offensive. Teacher was Jewish.
Rural town circa 2005-ish. A couple of teens dressed up as ghosts for Halloween. They made it half the day before the principal told him they had to at least remove the hoods.
Mockery of the mentally handicapped was pretty common in 2000s comedy. Frosted Tips. I'ma bring them back and you can't stop me.
Gentle reminder to everyone, 20 years ago was 2001. Take some aspirin while you read these. It will help with your back. Edit. Thanks for all the awards. Glad to hear everyone relates. Also, I am aware Aleve is better, for pain, but it helps reduce the risk of heart attack while it's at it. I just take my prescription stuff anyways for pain.
And please keep in mind that 1991 was 30 years ago. A lot of things changed across the 90s. And some things I see mentioned were already on their way out in 2001 and completely out of style by 2005-ish. Though somehow, 20/30ths of a year ago, seems to be a generic placeholder for 1976 in many people's minds.
That Pokemon was a fad that would go away soon.
What the heck is a Pokemons?
Smoking around your kids, especially in the car. I always got bronchitis.
I grew up my whole life with parents smoking in the house, parties on weekends with house filled with people smoking, as well as smoking in the car. Everywhere I went I smelled like cigarettes as a kid. I hated it. I remember specifically one time going to a girlfriend's house in my teen years. When I took my jacket off, her mom said, "Oof, how much do you smoke?" I hated that.
Not the most, but I was going through an old high school yearbook and someone used the term wigger, and that was totally cool to say.
I know someone whose actually name is DK Wigger.
That when a student beats the crap out of another student, it somehow was not assault and could just be overlooked. I was never bullied real bad, but goddamn, I saw some kids get beaten bloody and then the attacker would just get detention or a temporary suspension. I never saw a young adult have charges pressed against them like they would today. I guess maybe it's because today people tend to record fights more. People spending thousands of dollars on Beanie Babies. Edit. I realize I was being a bit loose with what was 20 years ago, but yes, they were still being sold then.
I wonder if there were people saying, they're overpriced, and other people responding, they're worth what people are willing to pay.
People would go in carnivals and shove their face in the same water barrel to grab an apple with their mouth. Completely bonkers in 2021.
Reminds me of shared cups with beer pong. It blew my mind when I saw people filling the cups with water and taking sips of beer out of their own personal cups. Oddly, even though it's cleaner, that's not my preferred way to play.
The Patriot Act.
Leaving your young kids unsupervised most of the time. I remember at 5 years old sitting in the parking lot of the bowling alley in my dad's car for 3 hours while he was inside bowling. Also, most of the time, my parents had zero clue as to where I was. I would leave the house in the morning on my bicycle and be home for dinner. Suited them just fine.
Smoking being allowed inside of restaurants. That is probably a fire hazard, not to mention kinda gross.
Family of 4? Smoking or non-smoking? An NBSP. Hostess at Red Lobster and Swiss Chalet greeting 7-year-old me with my family.
The heroin chic trend that female celebrities followed. Edit. Thanks for all the upvotes.
Funny, when I saw this question, I was thinking about the 70s and 80s until I realized 20 years ago was 2001. Dang, I'm old.
Wasn't even alive in the 80s and I thought the same thing.
Some states in the US not allowing interracial couples to adopt any child.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.